to the Pat Mayo Experience Week 13 main slate DraftKings picks and positional previews. We're going to talk about all the chalk, all the pivots. Plus, we're going to have the updated show on Friday where we actually really dig in to all the chalk plays and pivots. We're going to preview every position. But today is a very special show. Usually it's just me gabbing away with some sort of fancy expert, but I had to get the gang back together here. Mike Leone from DailyRoto.com. Davis Mattek from The Swolecast. They're on the line. What's up, guys?
This has been a long time coming. The people have wanted it. I've wanted it. And I don't know if Davis has wanted it, but here we are.
I mean, this is definitely the no experts involved show.
Hey,
So I hope the people are ready.
In fairness, Leone, I saw that Daily Roto, as the site, is ranked second in Fantasy Pros now.
Yeah, we're up to third. We've been on a roll. We had a little slow start, but we've been touting Russell Wilson every week for 4 years, so it's finally paid off.
So what do you guys submit for that?
We submit based on our projections that we have for all our subscribers, we just submit the rankings based off our projections. So what we're ranking there is based off of the projections that we're providing to subscribers. Obviously, there's a lot more nuance between projections and rankings, but that's where it comes from.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Davis, are you like me and just abstain from this entire process?
I used to do it.
It seems like a hassle.
Well, yeah, it was. I used to do it back when it was really important for me to get my name out there and take every opportunity I possibly could. And I'm too old for all of that now. People know who I am. It's not worth it.
And how old are you?
I am a very ripe 25 years old.
Oh my god. I wish I was 25.
25 is the last good year, dude.
No, my good years are over, man. I'm old. My knees hurt. I have a torn tendon in my arm from golfing. It's been over for me.
Well, yeah, I feel like you've lived 40 years and you're 25.
Yeah, I'm already exhausted. I'm exhausted.
Fortunately, you own so much Bitcoin, you could probably retire tomorrow.
I wish I owned enough Bitcoin to retire. There are some guys in DFS who own enough Bitcoin to retire. I am not one of them.
All right, let's get into the main slate stuff. So if you have questions about the Sunday primetime game or the Monday nighter, they're not going to be covered on the show. And I have to remind Davis and Leone, because you two are the guests that always start touting the guys that aren't a part of the slate we're talking about.
Dude, Le'Veon Bell, all the volume this week.
All right, let's talk running backs to start at the top. Alvin Kamara is now the most expensive running back on the board. He's $8,400. Gurley is $82. Ingram, is $7,900. Fournette coming off the bad week, $78. McCoy, Gordon, McCaffrey, Tevin Coleman, Kareem Hunt, Jordan Howard, and then the IR'd David Johnson. Don't play him. He's next at $6,300. If you're going to spend up at running back this week, first of all, Mike, is it important to spend up at running back, or is it a pay down week? Because it kind of looks like a pay down week to me if you like the top end guys. But who is it from this top end?
Well, I like a 3 running back approach, which brings into play one expensive running back, in early builds. So Todd Gurley is the guy that I like up top. And there's just very few ways that games can go where Todd Gurley is not producing, because he's so involved in the passing game. In the rushing game, he takes every single running back carry. With Malcolm Brown not there, I don't think Lance Dunbar, who's been the backup running back, has even touched the ball the last 2 weeks. So it just
wasn't even active last week, actually.
Yeah, so I'm not sure even who was active, but there was no other running back carry outside of Todd Gurley the last 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure it's just been, a few Tavon Austin carries. So the volume's just so incredible. Sean McVay's been really creative offensively. They've been so consistent. They're 7-point favorites in this one. Arizona doesn't have a good run defense. I don't know. It's just tough for me to see Gurley having a bad game. I think it's a really great cash game play.
Are you in with that too, Davis?
Yeah, he's the best play. He scored the most fantasy points of any skill position player this year. Actually, Antonio Brown might have topped him after this last week, but until that, he had scored the most fantasy points. And yeah, it hurts to fade Kamara every week, but I just know that over the long run, the best predictor of fantasy points in the future is going to be touches. That's the most predictive metric there is. Gurley gets more touches than anyone other than Le'Veon Bell. Even if he's not wildly efficient, he's still going to keep scoring fantasy points. A bad game for him at this point is 14. and you just take that. You put him in your lineup and you figure out the pieces around it, just because you need to lock that volume in.
Well, if you're thinking about like a tournament play from this range, the two guys I was looking at was Fournette, only because everyone's just so pissed off with him that they're not going to play him. They didn't play him last week, and if they did play them, they certainly did not like the results that came along with it. So I think he's just going to go massively under-owned. But I just look at Shady. Shady's sitting there at $7,600. I mean, out of all sort of the volume that you're talking about, of all the other guys, like Kamara and Ingram both get volume, but clearly they're in a split. There's no way for one of them to just kind of run away with all the volume. For Shady, there is. I know they've been using Traveris Cadet since Mike Tolbert has been sidelined, but the one thing about Cadet being in the game and Tolbert being on the sidelines is Cadet's not coming inside the 5-yard line, and it's taking away like goal line touches if, God forbid, the Bills ever get down inside the 5-yard line. But I like Shady as sort of the tournament player. Mike, you're the Bills expert. Do you agree?
Yeah, I hate to be boring and just agree with you, but that's the guy that I'm drawn to. Every week, it seems like he's under-owned, a highly skilled player. The Bills' offense isn't very good. They've switched up the running game style from last year with the new offensive coordinator and taken a big dip in efficiency. But again, as Davis said, touches are the biggest predictor of success. So I think the lack of efficiency, the Travaris Cadet being mixed in, maybe you don't want to play him in cash games, but the upside's massive. He can be used so much in the passing game. They're probably going to be down in this game. And I do like running backs, as we always say, where they're not game script dependent. And Shady's not game script dependent because he's used so frequently in the passing game for the Bills.
Davis, Christian McCaffrey, yes or no?
Yeah, I keep writing this every week in my column, but in these competitive games, I keep expecting him to get more carries. He did against Atlanta. He did not against the Jets. I don't know if you would call that a super competitive game. Like they led for most of the time, but he does lead the team in targets, and I continue to believe that in competitive games, and this game is like an absolute must win. Like they need to win this game to kind of be in pole position for the playoffs. And I just think that like a 12 carry 7 target game is probably like the mean projection here for McCaffrey. And the Saints defense has been good, but they're likely missing 2 of their corners, and their run defense is actually not as good. They're like 24th in run defense DVOA. And yeah, I just think that McCaffrey's like a really solid play. I don't think I'll use him in cash because I would prefer Gurley and then 2 cheap guys.
All right, so do you think that's going to be the most common build that we see this week? One of the expensive guys, whether it's Gurley, Kamara, or Ingram, or whoever anyone goes to at the top, and then the drop down to 2 of the cheaper running backs, because there seems to be like 5 guys you could theoretically play in that space below $5,000.
Yeah,
I think so.
The most common combination is going to be Gurley, Hyde, and Drake. I would assume that will be the highest owned pairing of running. Maybe I'm wrong. Leone just gave me a look like maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I guess it depends on injury news, but Jamal Williams looks like a stone cold lock.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably, if Ty Montgomery remains out, he's the best value play on the board. So it's a similar build. I'm with Hyde. Drake is tough because it's a tough matchup, but he should get a ton of volume. I like him a lot for tournaments. I bet he actually goes under-owned in this one. But the only other build I could see people doing is if, sometimes people love paying up at running back, and if they go with like Melvin Gordon and a Todd Gurley type. And Gordon we didn't really talk about, but he's interesting, but I think he's going to be pretty chalky.
Really?
I don't think he will be.
Yeah, neither
you don't
do
think
I.
he's going to be chalky?
No, I just go back and look at his past few games. The carries are still there, but like half of the value of Melvin Gordon, like when he was like not efficient, he always had the goal line touches, which was great, but he was, there were weeks where he could pile up like 7 catches. Now that Eckler has emerged enough and taking away some of that role in the passing game from Gordon, that I don't know how high his floor ever is anymore.
Yeah, I do think he's a really good tournament play then, if he's not going to be chalky, though. If people are looking at Eckler in the recent production, if they're looking that Cleveland's got a good rush defense in terms of DVOA.
That's what people are going to look at. People are going to look at the fact that the Cleveland run defense, by a lot of these metrics, is actually good.
Yeah, if that's the case, then I like Gordon a lot, just because sometimes we get sucked into, recent performance matters, especially in volume when we're trying to predict volume. But, there's been some weird games for the Chargers recently. They've had a couple of big blowouts. If this game isn't like a huge blowout, maybe we start seeing some of those Eckler targets shift back to Melvin Gordon. And
Didn't
if
they
that's
lose
the
to
case,
Cleveland last year, the Chargers?
Yeah, it's Christmas Eve on a Saturday. The Browns Browns still winless on a Sunday under Hugh Jackson.
Well, yeah, they're probably going to end up winning this game. I hope so for, hashtag Bills playoff hopes. But if Gordon is going to be like lower owned or just equally owned to Shady, for example, I like Gordon more than Shady.
See, I like Shady more than I like Gordon here.
Yeah, I'm on Gordon, but I see the argument. I'm kind of like splitting the difference on his volume and our projections between like the season-long volume and what's been recent. And I think if you do that, that makes him a better play than Shady, just because of the like scoring opportunities for. I keep wanting to say San Diego, but for the LA Chargers.
So does that mean that Hyde is not going to be owned given these splits?
I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around Hyde. Like, it's not a great matchup for Hyde. I mean, the Bears' defense is pretty good, and maybe the offense looks different under Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe he doesn't need to pass to Carlos Hyde 12 times a game.
No, he's going to need to pass to Carlos Hyde 12 times. Like, that's their offense. They don't have – because Pierre Garçon got hurt, and they have no one else to replace those possession-style play calls because Aldrick Robinson's not that guy. Marquise Goodwin is like a pure 9-route guy. Hyde is the only one that can work that like 3 to 6 average depth of target range, like even semi-efficiently.
I guess Trent
and
Taylor.
The other thing with
Trent Taylor could mix himself in there.
With Hyde, he hasn't scored in 5 weeks, and I think that's affecting his price tag a lot. So when you've got a guy who's priced not to score, your touchdowns are just a bonus there. And in this matchup,
Rita has not played at all. He had 1 carry last week.
Right. So I think even if you account for some Breda volume, Hyde still projects really well. He's just too cheap. Like I don't know how many other ways to say it.
He should be like 6,500, and he's not.
All right, well, in that range, Hyde is $5,900, but right above him, you have Kareem Hunt, who no one wants to play at this point, $6,900.
I'm playing him.
You're playing him? Okay, just hold on one sec.
In tournaments, I'd play Hunt over McCaffrey in tournaments.
Okay, 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Hunt is $6,900. Howard's $6,500. Howard's coming off a terrible game in a bad spot, and now he gets the Niners at home. Isn't this a great spot for Jordan Howard?
Yes.
Isn't he the tournament play here?
If you're going to take a running back who gets like no passing work, I'd probably rather play Howard.
But see, Hunt gets passing work out of positive game scripts. It's just he gets off the field when there are negative game scripts. And the KC offense has run about as bad as possible. They were -10 favorites 2 weeks in a row.
Leone, watch the games, man. Alex can't do anything. He can't. I'm telling you, he can't do anything.
If they're going to underachieve their team total by 15 to 20 points a week, yeah, Kareem Hunt's going to suck. But you get him at 6,900 against a Jets team that's not that great. Like he could be back to a 20 carry game, and we've seen the efficiency out of him early in the season. It's not like he just all of a sudden sucks. Like he went from amazing to terrible.
No, he's not the one who sucks. Alex is the one who sucks.
Well, yeah, Alex sucks, but they're still projected to score 24 points and win the game by 3 points. So, and if there's a chance, like if you get some positive variance and they're actually better than what they've been projected, where they've been way worse than what they've been projected, like you could see a massive game out of Kareem Hunt. You could see one of those games we saw early in the season. I think that we saw that his likelihood of hitting that ceiling has dropped a lot, but I don't think it's completely evaporated.
No, he would just have to bust a long one, really. Because I don't even think he's a primary. Like, if they ever did get near the goal line again, I don't think he would be the first guy to get a crack at it either.
Well, if you think that way, then yeah, you don't want to play him. But I think
Kelsey is top priority in the red zone now, I believe.
Do you guys see anyone from that like $6,000 to $5,000 level that you're gonna take a shot on, whether it be Lamar Miller, Devonta Freeman coming back? Because I kind of like Jarek at 5,100 against that Atlanta defense where they don't stop pass catching running backs.
Dion, probably.
You like Dion the best?
I mean,
this is like a 25-point Patriots win.
You never know. You never know.
You're right. You never know, Michael.
I like McKinnon, but McKinnon's like Melvin Gordon to me, where you're kind of splitting. Like his targets haven't been there recently, which is concerning. But then you look at the season long, and they're there pretty strongly. And Atlanta, we all know, everybody knows they inflate targets for the running back position. So I do like McKinnon, but I think I would probably take a chance on Burkhead or Deion Lewis before. I think they're priced too high for cash games now, because you need to guess right who's going to get scoring, whereas the previous 2 weeks, I don't think you had to guess right. You could still be okay. But I'd be willing to take that guess in tournament formats.
Well, is there a reason to go to any of these guys if Kenyon Drake is $4,900, Jay Cutler's starting for the Dolphins, and shout out to Gary and Thorne on this one. Cutler's ADOT this year, 7.8. He's going to be throwing to the running backs. Like, if you just combine Kenyon Drake and Damian Williams over the past few starts, I mean, it's like one big run and a whole bunch of dinky catches. That's what's going to happen this week. When Denver gets into the backfield, it's just going to be dump-off city. Like, is there a reason not to play Kenyon Drake?
I think the only reason is, and I want to get Davis's thoughts, just because I'm not really familiar with their backup running back there.
Center East Perry,
who may not even play. He's in concussion.
He's got a concussion.
He's in concussion protocol, so it might not even be him.
Right. So if it's not him, I feel better. I just think there's someone. I thought it was weird the way the split was between Williams and Drake, and to me it signaled that they just really didn't fully trust Drake. Now they might not have a choice, but if you give him all of the volume that Drake and Williams had, he's an amazing smash play. If you give him like all his volume plus 25% of Damian Williams' volume, then he's like an okay play. That's the
So the thing about Drake is that like all the scouts were like, oh, he's like Darren Sproles. Like he was just viewed as like a big playback, scat play, get him in space, but he's like good. Like he's not very big, but he's like got a decent athletic profile, and yeah, he probably is not going to hold up to 16 games of handling 80% of a team's running back work, but he can handle 3 games of doing 80% of the things. And Perry is like a total nothing. Like he like wasn't good in college, is like barely an NFL player. So even if he is active, like he won't be at practice all week, so it's going to be kind of like an emergency active situation.
Yeah, I think, well, you're talking me into Drake a bit more. I think I was just naturally conservative at first, and I was giving Perry some run, but the dude doesn't even have a Roto World blurb.
Yeah, like I'm telling you, I believe he played. I need to look this up because I remember him from college football DFS, but I remember him being like very not good.
Yeah, the other guy that if Perry doesn't get active for this game because of the concussion, it's going to be Devon Smith. So that would be your backup at that point.
And he's like the practice squad guy?
Yeah, he's the expected to be the first promoted from the practice squad if they need a fresh body.
Yeah, so man, it's just like these guys are not going to be at practice. The team's not going to know who Drake's backup is, but they know for a fact Drake's active and ready to go. So it's hard for me to see him not getting 16 carries and 4 targets probably.
Well, okay.
So I'll probably play Gurley no matter what, but you start to run into some interesting, like, what if you go Jamal Williams, Hyde, and Drake builds?
Well, what if you just go? What if you just go Drake, Williams, and Gurley?
That's what I have, right? Well, I'm going to be honest. My projections didn't have Montgomery out yet, so I didn't have Williams in. But now
he's not.
I do.
I don't think he's declared out, but he and Aaron Jones, didn't practice again today, so I currently have him projected out, and obviously it's.
I had Hyde in my early build.
And I mean,
in that spot,
on top of having one of the better matchups of the week with Jamal Williams at home against Tampa, he played 100% of the running back snaps for Green Bay last week.
Yeah, he would be what we would refer to as a lock.
He's got 20 carries a week, 3 straight weeks, basically 11 targets over the past 2 weeks. Stone cold lock. Best play of the week if mine's out.
All right, is there anyone else down in the running back category, like Darkwa, Collins, Jaquiz, like any of those guys, or is it just stupid not to take the 2 volume guys that are like the same price?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would take.
I don't go as contrarian at running back just because volume's a bit more predictable.
All right,
I'm on board.
I have one guy for you, and I mentioned this on the show yesterday with Jake when we were trying to come up with our running back rankings, and I think he makes more sense for DraftKings than he does for a season-long team, but DJ Foster has stepped into that Andre Ellington role now that Kerwin Williams looks like he's going to miss the game against the Rams. They're big underdogs. They're going to be throwing a bunch. He's $3,000. He could have like 5 to 8 catches in this game.
Yeah, you could throw him in 1 of 150, I guess.
Could you play him in cash?
1 of 150. He's a 1 of 150 play.
But yeah, like, I don't think that's he's a cash
Maddox's
play.
way of saying don't play him, but I'm gonna cover myself.
I'm gonna play him.
I see.
He's
I see the
$3
logic.
grand.
Sure, he's got
I
a
don't-
0.8% chance of smashing.
I
just can't-
think you're really underrating what that pass catching role in the Arizona backfield could be.
Maybe. I mean, it's possible.
I don't want to tie like my GPP teams to Gabbert at all. I know he's like looked all right, but now he's got to face like a real defense with teeth.
But that might actually work out even better. He's not going to have time to stand there and throw the ball downfield. He just needs to dump it off. It's not going to be Peterson.
Fitzgerald can stand 8 yards from the line of scrimmage, though.
I'm just like, those Ellington games were kind of absurd good variance, I feel like. And the thing with these running backs that we're talking about, they're not just like good break-even plays. Like if Drake, Jamal Williams are getting the volume we expect, like they're smash plays.
Yeah.
And you've got to do a lot to overcome that. So I'm not sure, even if you get 6 for 50 out of a third down back or receiving back, that's $3K. That seems like great value. I'm not sure that's enough to win you tournaments. I guess.
Yeah, no, they'd have to go Tariq Cohen, where they get like one 70-yard touchdown or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you didn't want to do that, let's say you wanted to pay up for all the big receivers, and you went Williams and you went Drake, and you decided to save all your money and took Foster in cash, could that work out?
Don't do
So
it.
you just don't play Foster.
Yeah, just don't do
No,
it.
I like Foster. I'm playing Foster. Screw you guys.
Dude, you love these receiving running backs.
And you know what?
No,
Every
you know who
Leone,
Pat
every
really
time that
likes?
Mike, every time you come on, you tell me that, and it's true. I do love these receiving backs, but then all of a sudden you're like, man, Chris Thompson's actually pretty good.
You know who Pat actually really loves? Pat loves whoever the third wide receiver for whatever trash team like randomly has to throw 40 times a game, like whether it be like Bruce Ellington or Seth Roberts. Like those are always the guys that Pat's like, you gotta play him. Harry Douglas, those are Pat's guys.
Hey, Bruce Ellington won me some cash in like week 4 against the Patriots.
No, there was a guy
That's a baller play.
There was a guy that you put me on last year who was like the dead man who had like 80 yards and a touchdown one
You
week.
were on Cam Meredith. Me and Mayo were on the Cam Meredith train early.
I mean, I was on there too, but this was someone else that it was maybe like a Titans guy that Pat put me on. I can't remember, but he's normally good with them, so I'll listen. But I'm not playing Foster.
All right, let's move to receivers because I got some losers this week that we can potentially throw out there too. If you're going to pay up at receiver, who are the smash guys to throw in your lineups? Mike.
Brandon Cooks.
Yep.
Every week that Hogan's out, the market share of targets has just been really high. I think he's at like 27% the 3 weeks that Hogan's been out. And when you're 27% market share of targets and you're a highly efficient receiver and you're in the Patriots offense that I'm without even looking, I'm just going to guess they have the highest team total of the week.
They do.
And he's not even like that expensive. So Cooks for me is the guy to pay up.
There's one other guy. You better say it. Say the right name.
It's DeAndre Hopkins.
It's DeAndre Hopkins.
Why is he so cheap?
Because the Savage thing, like their team total is low, and I bet people aren't even taking him. Like I bet even at these depressed ownership percentage or at prices, I bet people aren't taking him.
All right,
he had him as a good play, not a smash play. So Davis might be right. He might not be super high owned. We like the guy that we like every week.
Let me look.
Thomas.
Yeah. See, Michael Thomas to me is honestly like a worse version of Hopkins. Like he plays in a more efficient offense, but his target share kind of sucks. And he's the thing.
Sucks. What are you talking about?
No, I guess I shouldn't say his target share. I should say his target profile. Like he has literally no upside. Michael Thomas has. Like he's got one game above 21 points this year, or two games above 21 points.
He hasn't run good from a ceiling perspective and a lot of that's just
because of their offense that's not what it is anymore.
No, I agree, but the ceiling's there just because you can game log say, oh, he hasn't scored more than 21 points.
I'm not
ceiling is there.
Michael, we're through 12 games of the year. Like it's not time for us to be like, well, all of a sudden Drew Brees is going to be throwing.
Dude, you're just looking at the fantasy points. You're not looking at how they're being compiled. He's like against Carolina last time. He was like 5 for 60 and a touchdown on the first drive of the game. That had massive ceiling if Carolina didn't suck. And there's chances that Carolina doesn't suck. And even when he is in games where they've had positive game script, he has such a good catch rate.
And I mean, but in their like, what's his like red zone market share of like total plays? It's got to be like 8%.
Keenan Allen didn't have a ceiling before the last 2 weeks. Like he's gonna have a Keenan Allen game. He is going to have a Keenan Allen game by the end of the year.
He might.
I would just so much rather play Hopkins.
Yeah,
not even close.
I don't think it's close either. Like, even if you think that Michael Thomas could finally break out and have one of these Keenan Allen games, that's great. I mean, we know that he has the potential to do it. But in 4 games with Savage, 10 targets, 9 targets, 14 targets, 16 targets, and he's overcome bad matchups.
Yeah, but he's got like a 56% catch rate, whereas Michael Thomas, you're at like near like 70.
Leone, honestly, I believe you're trying to be the smartest guy in the room when the answer is really easy.
All right, in cash games, I'll give it to you, but I still think the ceiling's there for Thomas in terms. I like him, but you know what? Go Michael Thomas. I don't care what you guys say. You can guilt me.
I'm not guilting you, dude. I'm just trying to get you to like realize that, like, sure, maybe Hopkins has ran bad on catch rate though. Like, why can't you believe that someone who's getting like
quarterback's Tom Savage? So I'm not. Look at his stuff last year too.
Okay, Drew Brees is playing like Kyle Orton right now. So like what do you want me to say?
Drew Brees isn't playing bad. They just
He's not playing bad. He's just not throwing the ball. He's managing the game. 37-year-old Drew Brees, or however old he is, they're just having him manage the game and letting Kamara and Ingram do everything.
Also, that if we go back and look at hold on one second. If we look at Hopkins' catch rate the last 3 weeks, I mean, he also just faced 3 of probably the toughest matchups he's going to see all year. He had to face Jimmy Smith, he had to face Patrick Peterson, then he had to face the Rams defense. Like, those aren't cupcake matchups. This is a pretty good spot for him.
He was the first wide receiver with more than 40 yards.
He has a 53% catch rate over the last 4 weeks, so I don't know what numbers you're looking at.
We're looking at him playing these tough cornerbacks and giving you an explanation other than just Tom Savage is his quarterback. Grow up, Michael.
But 53%. All right,
let's bet on this.
Michael Thomas,
no. Hopkins he might double the points of Michael Thomas this week.
Yeah. Give me a bet, Leone.
I'll take. All right, whatever you want. Point per dollar production. I'll take Thomas.
No, that's stupid. It should.
He's
they're
$400 cheaper.
Okay, so I'll give you what? How much is $400 worth? 1.5?
Dude, so you're just backtracking into point per dollar production by giving me a line. It's the same thing. You can add it on in the beginning.
Okay, but this doesn't really matter from a points per dollar perspective. You can only take really one of them. You're either going to take Thomas or you're going to take Hopkins. It's doubtful you're going to play both. And listen, if you want to be, how many points do you want to be spotted then for DeAndre Hopkins, Mike?
I just want 1 point. Give me 1 point.
You get a point. You can have Michael Thomas +1.
Fine. What's the bet?
No, $50.
You're on, Davis.
Okay, booked.
So you for one for me, one for Davis. So you got $100 on the line here.
Oh, I'll go. Oh, you want it? You want something?
Yeah, I want a part of this.
All right, let's do it. Michael Thomas. This is the week, boys.
And Davis has to pay you in Bitcoin.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will not part with any Bitcoin on this stupid bet.
All right, let's talk about the next range of guys down. Do you think Sterling Shepard, with his market share, even with Geno Smith starting, could be a player? Because I don't think anyone's going to play him, and it looks like he's going to start with the migraines. He gets Oakland. Oakland sucks.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was going to play. My initial run of projections, to be honest, had him out, so I don't have a lot of good
I don't know if he's going to play or not, but he returned to practice on Wednesday.
If he plays, the market share is just going to be absurd against a terrible secondary. So, God, 7K, though. Oh, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do 7K. I was expecting to see like 6,200.
All right, well, let's say Lattimore sits. What about Funches against the Saints?
So my concern with Funches, see, this is tough because last week I was worried about Funches because the targets, as much as we said with Kelvin Benjamin out, he's going to get peppered. The market share targets wasn't that great in recent weeks. And then last week he came out with a huge number. But he's more of a tournament play than a cash game play for me because I just never know how they're going to disperse their targets on a weekly basis, even without a lot of other options. It seems to be somewhat volatile. But if Lattimore is out and they're probably facing a negative game script, I think the ceiling is massive. But he's not in the cash game conversation for me.
Davis, from $6,000 and up to all the way up to Julio Jones, who are like 3 or 4 guys that you kind of want to mix in and out? Because we didn't even talk about Mike Evans. Mike Evans is in a pretty decent spot as well. And he's been like 2 inches away from having 2 really giant games the past 2 weeks, and it just didn't work out for him. Like, I feel like there's a Mike Evans 3-touchdown game on the horizon.
Yeah, I mean, I think there definitely is too, and Jameis returning helps him. A guy I want Leone to tell me. So like I think Robbie Anderson, if I just didn't have to worry about like ownership or anything or like people being fishes about it, like which is just a straight up good play. The thing is like I like don't think Robbie Anderson's a good play at like 23% ownership though. So like how hard are people gonna jump on to Robbie Anderson, who by the
Not
way,
hard.
he's just smashed all year. He is like one of the best wide receivers in terms of average depth of target, and he converts those like at a higher than like league average clip, and he has the best adjusted yards per attempt of any Jets wide receiver. Like McCown has been most successful throwing to him.
I just look right above him. I see Kupp, who I think has a better floor, and Devontae Adams might be like the best value on the board.
I like Devontae Adams a lot.
Okay, I got a fish take. I think this is finally the week where it looks absurd that Jordy Nelson is like 4,400 or whatever.
Well, there's like three like contrarian guys down in that level. There's like T.Y. Hilton, he's like 48. Sammy Watkins is down there, expected to draw Patrick Peterson. Jordy's the other one, but like I don't think I can play any of them.
Watkins is really interesting to me.
Watkins sucks. I hate Watkins.
Watkins does suck, and he's gonna have Patrick Peterson on him. No way.
Okay.
I played Watkins in cash last week, which you guys know me. You know how hard that was for me to do.
Dude, he was perfectly fine, and he dropped one long pass he would have smashed.
No, he was fine last week. He played decently. Like he was a good play last week. Sammy Watkins has zero chance of getting the best of Patrick Peterson. He's not good enough. He's not.
Dude, he's had one of the best rookie seasons ever when you adjust for amount of team pass attempts.
I don't stop.
In history.
Just please stop with this propaganda.
Dude, that's like a fact. If you account for percentage of team passing yards and team pass attempts totals, he had like a comparable rookie season to Odell Beckham.
No, great. Like good for him.
You guys gonna fuck around?
Comparable first X amount of games. It might not have been his rookie season because he was hurt, but like first.
Oh my God! Just marry Sammy Watkins already. Just to get it over with.
I hate you guys so much. I don't know. I thought we were getting the gang back together to like pick on Davis, and like it's turned around.
No, like we're gonna pick on your pathetic Bills and your pathetic inability to like get over the fact that the team traded an extra first to get Watkins, who's not even on the team now.
Don't get me started on Tyrod Taylor.
We won't. Don't worry about that. Are you guys gonna
absolutely no reason to discuss him.
These like middle $5,000 guys. Do you have any interest in any of them? Because I don't see any one that I love. Maybe Demaryius Thomas.
I like Demaryius Thomas. Call me a sucker, but I think some Simeon Demaryius stacks in tournaments is
no. I was actually thinking Sanders was the one that I wanted.
Triple stack.
I think Sanders is maybe playable in cash games.
I'm just looking at the recent volume, and it's tough to tell, because
but the volume
quarterback switches.
The volume was with the guy that liked.
Like literally what I was just saying, but you didn't let me finish. It's tough to tell with all the quarterback switches where the volume is going to land, but I don't know if you can buy in 100%. Like, oh, he had this volume with Simeon, and then he had this volume with the other guys, and we're just going to automatically revert to the volume with Simeon. But I think both of them are fine for tournaments. With the Dolphins are 31st in pass defensive DVOA and overall DVOA, I believe.
All right, so Alan Hearns absolutely destroys the Colts every time that they play, but it doesn't look like he's going to play. He has not returned to practice as of yet with that ankle injury. Do you think that could filter down to D.D. Westbrook or potentially Keelan Cole?
I like D.D. Westbrook as a tournament play. 16 targets in his first 2 games. Has some, rack upside there. I like him as a tournament play. I don't like him for cash.
Davis, are you buying that?
I mean, I think that he's probably okay. I don't know how much I really want to go into this range of like really cheap guys. Like I kind of feel like with the cheap running backs, it's not necessary. Like every week we go into these cheap wide receivers just hoping we can get like 6 targets for 50 yards or whatever. And like this is one of the first weeks where I feel like that's not where roster construction leads you. Like I think you can really attack the mid range.
Yeah, I think you can go Cooks and one other wide receiver in the 7K range, whoever you decide is the best guy there. And then
Yeah, whoever
probably,
whoever it might be.
and then probably a cheaper wide receiver in that third spot. So like more of like the sub 5K guy. So I mean, I don't mind DD's price range. I know Davis loves Robbie Anderson, but I think Jermaine Kearse might be the better player.
No, I like Curse too. I think McCown like might legitimately just ball the F out on the Chiefs.
They've been really condensed lately. I think him, Robbie, and Safarian Jenkins are like
They
over
get like
70% of the market
70%.
share. The last 3 weeks for Kearse, he's been at 19% market share targets on the season. It's really, really high though.
All right, other guys down there we have to talk. Michael Crabtree isn't playing. Amari Cooper probably not going to play with a concussion.
My boy.
What's that?
Boy.
So
My
are you?
Eskimo brother.
Are you? Do you want to play Cordero at $3,400?
Kind of.
I think Seth
It's kinda
Roberts.
like-
I think
it's
Seth
like
Roberts is the better play.
Yeah. No, Roberts can't be the better play. Roberts and Holton are like complete one-trick ponies. Patterson, they'll at least like try and make him seem like a real wide receiver, even though he isn't.
Mike.
I'm still trying to figure out that receiving situation for Oakland with Cooper Crabtree out, but I think you can play Cordell Patterson at 3,400. I think he'll get a lot of short, like high catch rate targets, and that's what you love. That's what you love, Mayo, isn't it?
I do, but I just think that Seth Roberts is going to be the one that gets all the targets. And, I mean, we always complain about Seth Roberts getting all these red zone looks when Cooper and Crabtree are both active anyway. I mean, if they ever get down there, wouldn't they just logically throw to him?
Yeah, I mean, last year, even when they had Cooper and Crabtree, we saw him steal a bunch of the red zone targets, not as much this season. I think they're both in play. I just think Cordell Patterson probably has a better profile for cash games and tournaments. You could take the touchdown upside of Seth Roberts over that. Probably, as Davis and I were talking about before the show, Jared Cook might be the smarter play. He's just priced.
No, that's
so
never a good. That's never a good play. Don't do that. Jared
Do you hate Jared Cook or Ingram more?
Ooh, Jared Cook has been in my life longer and just pissing me off. So it's probably Jared Cook.
He's like tortured everyone who's ever played
yeah.
fantasy.
And you know when Jared Cook always lets you down when it's a spot where he's supposed to go off.
That is definitely true. That is 100% true.
The weeks no one plays Jared Cook are the weeks he scores 25 points.
I'm kind of liking this CP build I just put together.
Well, let's hear it.
I got McCown, Gurley, Williams, Patterson, Hopkins, Cooks, Drake, Jets, and 5,800 for a tight end.
Oh, I mean,
so Jared Cook slots right in there.
Oh, yeah, you just go to the other side of the ball. Just play Evan Ingram instead.
Yeah, Ingram also.
Did we talk about Deshaun Jackson here?
No.
You guys were talking about Mike Evans, but I think D-Jax is the more interesting point per dollar play.
How come?
He's like top 5 in the NFL in air yards. You look at, I know he's different than the guys that are around him, but the guys that are around him absolutely smash. It's a good matchup against a bad Green Bay pass defense. And I like picking on defenses that are bad against the pass and good against the run because it encourages more volume. And you just look at it spread out. Like Evans at his price, he's not getting the 30% market share targets he was last year. He's more like 25, 26. And you've got D-Jax there at 20% who's seeing all these downfield opportunities. And he's, $2,400 cheaper? I think any fits roster construction a bit better when you account for, like, you've got all these other 7K guys like Hopkins, Thomas, and Cooks that you can go to.
I mean, is $4,700 like the sweet spot in price? Because every single week, Deshaun Jackson just seems like he's a bit overpriced for his boomer bust nature. That, like, if you're gonna go down, like compare like D.D. Westbrook, I would actually kind of compare him to Jackson this week and the opportunity that he has, and he's just cheaper.
Maybe in cash games, when you think of the type of players they are, you feel better about like the quantity of catches per dollar with D.D. Westbrook. But in tournaments, I think that I don't like either that much for cash games, just given the builds, but I do think the ceiling's higher on Deshaun Jackson than it is D.D.
All right, Davis, you break the tie. D.D. or D-Jax?
Yeah, Leone's right.
No, you guys are both wrong. No. D.D. Westbrook's going to outscore Deshaun Jackson this week. And he's a better price. Makes me sad.
Yeah, but he's being quarterbacked by Blake Bortles.
That's true, but I mean, doesn't Jameis Winston have a shoulder injury?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not excited. Like, I am kind of avoiding this Tampa Bay situation unless I could be talked into Cameron Brate.
I guess.
But I just don't. I don't think Bortles is going into this game like planning on airing it out.
All right, I got one more receiver I want to talk about. Everyone is kind of loading up and they want to play one of these Oakland receivers, see who has the best shot at it all. But Josh Reynolds is $3,500. He played 79% of the snaps last week. We've already talked about how Patrick Peterson's going to be on Sammy Watkins. Everyone's going to play Cooper Kupp. Everyone wants to play one of these Oakland receivers. We've seen wide receiver 2s and 3s light up Arizona all season long. Why doesn't Josh Reynolds pop off the page here to anyone else? Like, isn't he the play and he's only $3,500?
I think that's a math multi-entry play where you're saying, okay, Watkins gets locked down, those targets get distributed elsewhere. I'm just still gun shy on projecting this secondary target volume for the Rams. And, you know, you've got Tavon Austin there, you've got some other guys there where the volume could go to. The tight ends weren't that involved last week. I just see some ways where where it's too good to be true, where you're giving him the volume he got last week, and then you're adding on some volume from Sammy Watkins because the Patrick Peterson thing, and you end up over projecting.
But if everyone's kind of projecting a lot of these short passes onto Cordero Patterson, and hey, maybe he can break a big one, but to me, Reynolds seems a lot safer for one thing, and his upside might be the exact same.
Reynolds is in my column this week. I think that he is the best cheap wide receiver play. I think that he's lock for 6 targets, upside for more. And he's also a guy that, like, from an athletic perspective, like if you went and looked at him on like Player Profiler or whatever, he's like very solid. Like he's probably better than Patterson.
All right. So now we've swung back. Leone in your face.
You guys might be right on this one. I'm not as staunchly supportive of like CPAT over Reynolds as I am the earlier situation that we bet on.
All right, let's go to quarterbacks. If you can pay down at all these different positions, is it just smart to take Brady? Like, if you took Brady every week in cash and figured out something around that, I feel like you would have won almost every week.
I don't think that's the case because the distribution of quarterback scores is generally a bit tighter than it is for skill player scores, where you can really get smashed.
Sure, but every single week, Brady puts up an immense amount of points, and then there's just variance with whoever else it is popping up. Like, there could be a huge distribution of points between all the quarterbacks, but saying that people own that quarterback in that week is really tough to figure out. But just having Brady, it was
I'm saying there's like, if you take like point per dollar wise, you generally can find someone that's like somewhat close to Brady, even though his floor is really, really good.
Yeah, but you have to pick right in that circumstance, and that can go horribly wrong. With Brady, you've picked right every week.
Usually it doesn't go horribly wrong, I guess is what I'm getting at quarterback, just because of the way the position is.
All right, well, I mean, it was kind of like last year. Like, for the final 7 weeks last year, the move was just to play Aaron Rodgers every single week.
I don't think you have to do that this week.
Okay, then where else can you go?
Special circumstance.
Where else can you go then this week at quarterback?
Dude, there's
Marcus
so
Mariota
many guys in the 5K range.
And Josh McCown and Brett Hundley.
I like Brett Hundley. I know some of his production last week was fluky, but 5,100 for a guy who has rushing upside, and even if you don't bake that in, this game has a total of 44. The NFL sucks right now. No other game total has a total higher than 48. So you've got 2 cheap quarterbacks in a game with a game total that's, you know, comparable to other high-scoring venues, and you've got 2 really bad pass defenses in this one. So I like both quarterbacks in this game. If you trust that Winston's healthy, he's a really, really solid cash play. Obviously, it's tough to 100% trust he's healthy, though.
All right, so Hundley's $5,100. There are 3 other like crappy quarterbacks who have good matchups this week that are even cheaper. So Hundley's 51, Simeon's 48, Geno's 45, and Savage is 45. You would go with Hundley out of those guys?
I would.
Yes. Yeah.
I would take Geno and get the savings.
I mean, the team total on Geno is what, like 16? Like I'm very weary about Geno. And yeah, I mean, I think the argument for Geno is what, like he has one good run, and
he pays off. We've been in this spot with Geno before,
and he's done it before. Like,
yeah, I mean,
as a fantasy quarterback, Geno Smith has a better track record than Brett Hundley does.
I don't know. Hundley's been pretty decent, other than that Ravens game. He's been usable for fantasy in pretty much all his games.
Well, yeah, like 10 points against the Saints.
He hasn't been that good.
Yeah, like what
I mean,
did you even?
Come on, dude.
I just think you like Brett Hundley, and you're just trying to make him seem like he's better than he is.
I do kind of like Brett Hundley. Like, I just think I kind of like. I guess I kind of just like quarterbacks like him for fantasy in general, and I guess Geno is that kind of quarterback.
And he's way cheaper. Like, he's $600 cheaper. I mean, by Mike's thing, I mean, he only has to score what? I mean, if we were.
I mean, McCown is the guy that I like think is like legitimately like just a good play.
What about Bortles? Because last time they played Indy, all he did was throw the ball.
I'm not gonna go there. You're not going to catch me publicly touting Blake Bortles.
No. Blake Bortles is terrible. The projected game script isn't good for Blake Bortles. He's like 10th on the list.
All right, Garoppolo at 51 against a tough defense, but maybe he's just really good.
Yeah, I mean that's part of my point about paying down a quarterback, though. There's just so many options you can go with. I don't think you're going to get absolutely killed. And you look at, we talked about Brandon Cooks, we talked about Todd Gurley. Like, even if you take some of those mid-low price running backs that are smash plays, you still need to save some money to get in, two high-skilled players. Like, the price on DraftKings is kind of tight.
All right, but I mean, out of all the guys we were just kind of talking about, the crappy quarterbacks, like whether it is Hundley or Geno or whoever, I mean, I guess McCown is sort of a level up from those guys, but so is his price. He's $5,500. Like, Keenum's only $6,000, and Goff's only $6,700. And I mean, Goff in soft matchups keeps coming through every single time.
I like produces Goff.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm fine with Goff. It's just, if you're going up to that salary at that point, like, you've got Phillip Rivers at $7,000. The guy I play like every single week, Russell Wilson. Oh no! Oh, I did it! You did it!
You finally. We're 46 minutes in, and you finally did it.
Come on, Leone, grow up.
I was so close, guys. I like Phillip Rivers though more. He's a few $100 more, but I'd rather go with Phillip Rivers again against a Cleveland defense that's pretty good against the run. So if you project that to mean a higher amount of pass attempts for the Chargers, which they're already skewed to being pass heavy, particularly in terms of scoring, we've got them projected for around like 80% of their offensive touchdowns this week to be passing. So the high team total there, I prefer Rivers to Goff.
Well, if that's the case, and they're going to be passing that much, we barely even talked about Keenan Allen, but Devin McCourty's been doing a good job of shutting down a receiver on the other team. Now, do you think that he ends up getting paired up with Allen, and could this be like a Hunter Henry week? Travis Benjamin keeps popping up every week. Like, out of the skill position guys in the passing game, do you have any take on them?
The hard part is it looks like Mike Williams might be out, so that might open up some secondary opportunities, but Allen runs a ton of his routes from the slot, and he can still dominate from the slot in this game. And I don't know if McCourty will follow him there. I saw someone noted a stat on Twitter that McCourty hasn't played very many snaps guarding the slot receiver this season. So hopefully we get more information on that. If you knew McCourty was going to shadow Allen, I think Allen's just at the point where he's just priced too high, even though we've seen ridiculous performances, that I'll probably pass on him. Is he like the highest priced receiver on the week?
Second highest priced
receiver on the week. I like taking a chance on Hunter Henry. His targets are so volatile, but in tournaments, I think his upside is really, really massive.
Davis, do you have any preference from the Chargers passing game?
So this sounds weird for a team that's going against the Browns, but I'm not like heavily considering any of their options. Like, I don't think that you have to get pretty deep into like generating lineups to start considering going overweight on Chargers guys. And the only one that I think that has like, I mean, I guess I could see Tyrell having like 6 catches for 85 yards and like randomly 2 touchdowns, but I would prefer to just go in on Melvin on like those lineups.
Yeah, I even like Travis Benjamin more than I like Tyrell at this point. I just think that he gets more involved every single week. And hey, it's a revenge game for Travis Benjamin.
It is a revenge game for Benjamin.
Any more quarterbacks? Can you sell me on Mariota? Because I see the matchup. I'm like, hey, that looks pretty good. But like, I can't play Mariota. He looks like garbage.
doesn't I think it was Mike Clay or someone had a note on Mariota having like one of the only quarterbacks to not like achieve past a certain threshold of fantasy points on the season.
Which seems strange because you think that he would have like 2 40-point games somewhere along the line.
Isn't last year, wasn't he the quarterback that was on the most Millie Maker winning teams?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. And I do think this comes back to like what I was saying with Michael Thomas with game log watching in terms of ceiling. Like I wouldn't say based on this year's game log, Mariota all of a sudden doesn't have a ceiling. We made this mistake with Cam Newton for years where he'd have a bad stretch and we'd say, oh, he no longer has a ceiling, and smash game out of nowhere. So I do think he has a ceiling, and Houston has, I think on 4-for-4 where they schedule adjust fantasy points per game against positions, I believe Houston's allowed the most fantasy points per game to the quarterback position based on their metric.
All right, let's move to tight ends.
The hard part is he just doesn't have a great price. Like he's sort of in no man's land, right? Where you can get up to Goff and Rivers at 6,700, 7K. You can drop down to Jameis and all the scrub guys in good spots we're talking about. Quarterback's in a really weird spot this week, though, because there's not a lot of teams with like huge team totals, and you take away, the stud Russell Wilson on the slate, and all of a sudden I've got the values at the quarterback position really condensed. So I think, not to sound like I'm copying out, but you can make cases for lots of guys. So as a result, I think I would build elsewhere and come back to quarterback almost last.
Yeah, I think that's pretty sharp.
Tight ends. Mike, we'll go back to you on this one. You've watched all these Bills games over the years. How often does Gronk tear apart the Bills?
It feels like pretty often. And Gronk, I've been to many of these games, and Gronk is the craziest human being I've ever seen in person. He is just absolutely massive. And I as much hype as Gronk gets, I still think he's probably underrated in the scope of how good of a player he is all time. With that said, the weird part with the New England projections for me this week is the Bills have oddly allowed, in terms of the offensive touchdowns they've allowed 62% on the ground. No other team has allowed more than 50% on the ground. So it's this hard push and pull where, like, do you take that into account when you're projecting Brady in the passing game? Do you drag down their team passing touchdown percentage to account for what's happening against the Bills, or you just say that's fluky and they're going to throw for a regular amount of touchdowns? And that's going to have a pretty meaningful impact on how you're projecting the New England guys. So Cooks, I feel like so underpriced for his efficiency and where his target share has been, that I'm still really in on him. But tight end, I just prefer going cheaper.
So
yeah, pretty much every week I ignore the Jack Doyles or whatever every week. Like I just try and get like 4 catches for 40 yards from my guy.
I don't necessarily go that cheap, because I do think, well, Doyle is one of the safest tight ends in existence, his profile, which is weird. But
he is.
So
he's now up to 5,200. He's just gaining in salary every single week.
He's inside the top 10 in terms of pricing. So Gronk's the most expensive. You think he's too expensive? That would probably mean Kelsey's probably too expensive as well at $7,000. Although I think he'll be far lesser owned. Evan Ingram at $5,700 draws an awesome matchup against Oakland, and I mean, the drops have been a serious problem, but if Sterling Shepard's going to be back, he's been really good in the games when Shepard has actually been there too to alleviate some of the pressure. And I don't think that I just don't think that anyone's going to play any Giants. And if you look at the receiving game, all the targets are going to go to one of two places, Shepard and Ingram. So if you can get like a sub 5% Ingram, he's savings off the top guy, and he has a really easy matchup to exploit. I might be overthinking the fact that Geno Smith doesn't suck, and he's not very good, but he can throw to his tight end. That would only make a lot of sense. Very short throws, let Ingram do the rest. I like Evan Ingram at $5,700. Davis, would you go with him?
Not in cash. I don't think so. I think that I would place more emphasis on getting the 3 running backs that I was comfortable with. And I also think that you kind of you don't have to play Cooks and Hopkins, but I think I'm going to play Cooks and Hopkins.
Mike?
For me on Ingram, you mentioned sub 5%. If you're getting him at sub 5%, you're absolutely playing him in tournaments, because you've got like 30+% market share of target upside there, and someone that's going to, of the receiving touchdowns, he's going to command a huge percentage of them, one of the highest percentage of market share receiving touchdowns of any player in the league probably. The issue is just that we don't project there to be a lot of those available.
Tournament-wise, I like Hunter Henry just like you do, Mike, at $4,700. I think that's a gamble that you can take and just hope it's one of those games where they throw to him a lot, because when that happens, they tend to win a lot of games. So it only makes sense. And they're playing the Browns, who suck against tight ends. The other two, like, good matchup guys this week, one of them's tough because it's Ben Watson and he's $3,100. But if this is a game where the Lions can actually put up points, then you're going to see far more Watson used in the passing game, because they won't just be able to run. But I think the guy on the other side of the ball is the better play. Like, I know it hurts playing Eric Ebron ever, but Baltimore struggles against tight ends, and he's only $3,000.
Davis,
Sure.
you want to? I don't know if I'm in on Ebron.
I'm not in on Ebron. I think that Stafford is maybe kind of injured right now, and that offense is just so gross. And Baltimore is legitimately first in defensive DVOA. Does not feel like I would rather play Cameron Brate, who's like splits with Jameis, are like actually quite good.
I'd rather play Brate as well. I think that, I mean, both these guys have a second tight end there that's getting time, but Brate is ahead of Howard, whereas Ebron, I don't even know if you can make the case that he's ahead of Fells. Like, they're playing equal time, and even in the red zone, you see Fells in there. So I think that's a pure split.
Well, you mentioned Baltimore is the number one DVOA defense. They're second last versus the tight end in DVOA.
Yeah, I mean, but that can get skewed sometimes. Like, I love
those
setters,
splits
I
are
love
so
DVOA,
small.
but if you catch a couple touchdowns, like, that's a high DVOA play, and that's not necessarily predictive of like future fantasy stuff. Like, you want more just total opportunities and how defenses play, and I still think you need to account for the overall strength of the defense in that, and that's just one small part of it is the specific DVOA against the position, and I just don't see the requisite volume here.
All right, well, the last guy, and we should probably talk about him because he's $3,200. It's Ricky Sealy-Jones. In or out?
I think Leone likes him. Yeah.
So here, you go first. Let me get prepared mentally.
I mean, like, just like my general take on these things is always going to be the same, which is that, yes, it's going to absolutely suck to fade him for the 3 weeks where he runs hotter than God. And then the 7 weeks where a guy who plays like 30% of his team snaps, when they suck, that's when you take your profit. So yeah, Seals Jones might play 8 snaps, have 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns, but that doesn't mean that he's like a sharp play.
Have you gathered so you've gathered your thoughts? You're ready to go on this one?
Yeah, so I see where Davis is coming from, and I don't think he's like a stone cold lock by any means, but I also think you have to account for that he could play more snaps, and he's been targeted so insanely heavily on the snaps that he has played that I think they're going to give him more playing time. He played 14% of the snaps 2 weeks ago. Last week he was up to 24% of the snaps. He's been targeted on 42% of the snaps that he has played. And in a game where Arizona is going to be playing from behind, most likely against the Rams, you could see really high pass volume from this team. And they are, I believe, top 5 in both overall pass percentage and in passing TD percentage as percentage of their offensive touchdown, just because their running game is absolutely horrific. So a bad running game, a negative game script, they're going to have to throw a ton. A guy who's been efficient, targeted heavily per snap, and could see his snaps grow. And at 3,200, your opportunity cost at this position isn't huge. Like, Cameron Brate gives you sub 5-point games. So it's not like if he has one of those awful games Davis is talking about, you're absolutely crushed.
All right, let's close with defenses. The highest price defense, the Jags are up to $4,500, which makes sense. Would this be a week? Because I don't know if people are going to pay up for the Jags because they're so expensive. But if Tennessee was able to sack Jacoby Brissett 8 times, how many times is Jacksonville going to sack Jacoby Brissett?
A lot. Didn't they sack him like 11 times earlier in the year, or was that a different
No,
game?
they sacked him 10 times. They sacked Savage 10 times week 1.
Okay. All right. Especially because I think the chalk play is going to be the Chargers for people that pay up, because you'll get the Chargers for $500 cheaper. So I do think the ownership's going to be off them. And whenever you get a defense with that high of ceiling, I think you can have some exposure in tournaments. I'm reluctant to always be too heavily exposed to very expensive defenses, just because the variance with defenses is so high that if you spread it out amongst some cheaper defenses, you run into a touchdown from any of them, and then all of a sudden you're playing with a lot more money on the skill players. I like that approach, but for me in cash games though, it's the Chargers. That's the smash defense.
Yeah, Chargers at $4,000 works. The three other defenses that I'm looking at here: the Bears at $3,500. The Ravens seem egregiously underpriced.
The Ravens are so underpriced.
Yeah, why are they only 3,100? What am I missing? Why are they only $3,100?
Right, so that's the move if you're not paying up for Chargers. They have one of the best defenses in the league. You're playing against a team that's pass happy. That's where the big plays and the big events happen.
And you're dealing with, like you already mentioned, they're the number one DVOA defense, plus they have a good pass rush. And Davis, you've already mentioned Matt Stafford is kind of banged up. It's an ankle injury, so he's not as mobile. And that offensive line has dipped to bottom 10 in the league per DVOA as well. So it's not like they're actually stopping anyone. And the amount of pass volume that's going to come from Matthew Stafford, it's going to stop the clock at points. Like, that just seems like a really good opportunity for the Ravens.
Yeah, it's like he's the Ravens defense is going to be all over Stafford. Like, how often are you going to get the number one defense in DVOA? Like, they're higher than Jacksonville for not the most expensive.
And they're not even close to the most expensive.
Yeah, like it's unreal.
All right, the other defense I wanted to point out was $2,800, the Saints. And maybe it depends if Lattimore plays or not, but I mean, regardless, the pass rush for the Saints is still really good. The offensive line for Carolina is not great. Cam concedes a lot of sacks because he's going to try to take off and run. Sometimes it doesn't work out. He gets smothered up. He's someone that can be sacked a lot in a game. We know he can turn the ball over. And frankly, if you like the Saints to win this game, and I'm kind of torn on it, I think the defense does a lot to play a part in that. And if they can get up early, the one problem with the Saints right now is that they're running the ball so much that the games aren't going really, really long. They're not getting clock stoppages, and the amount of plays are down from what you would expect from the Saints in the past. Leone, do you like the Saints at all?
Yeah, I was literally just looking up Marshawn Lattimore's injury to talk about them as you were segueing into the Saints defense. And I mean, you really hit all the points. Cam Newton will take some sacks. His defense is top 10 in DVOA. They were, much better before the game last week where they had two corners out. I do think the cornerback injuries make a difference, though. So I'm going to keep an eye because they were without both their top corners, not just Lattimore, but also Crawley there. Both those guys, I think Lattimore's top 5 in Pro Football Focus pass coverage. The other guy is top 20. So that would make a big difference for me whether or not I want to use them.
Davis?
The defense that I am pivoting to, just because I do this pretty much every week, it's like a sickness, and I need someone to get me to stop. But I'm playing the Jets just because I pretty much always, I at least start constructing my lineups like on Wednesday with the cheapest possible defense that I think can do well that is at home, and that's the Jets for me this week.
Okay, well, if we're going to take one of those defenses and just completely punt defense and try to take someone from down there, I don't think it necessarily needs to be a home defense, but if the Raiders are without their top 2 offensive playmakers, and now Jared Cook is your best offensive player, like, I know the Giants are banged up, Jenkins isn't going to play, he's done for the year, but the Giants' defense has still been pretty good. Like, could you roll the dice on them?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I just don't see... I mean, it sort of depends on that Raiders game plan, but I think you're going to see, a more run-heavy approach from the Raiders game plan, and that doesn't necessarily dictate upside from the opposition team. Like, points allowed, again, outside of, like, I think it's between, less than 17 points maybe, and then greater than 34, something like that. Like, there's only like a 2 fantasy point switch between, like, this really big middle ground where most teams are. So I just don't see the big upside there. I'd rather take a chance maybe like on the Houston Texans defense. I think they have more big play ability than the Giants defense does.
What about just going against Mitch Trubisky, even though it's the worst defense basically in football?
Yeah,
you could. I think you can spread out these cheap defenses in tournaments. The issue with the Bears is that they're just really run heavy. Again.
Yeah, they don't throw the ball enough to generate those opportunities to score fantasy points.
Right. Like, I'd almost take a defense that's super risky against a good offense that's going to throw a lot.
So like the Vikings then.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's just a good defense playing a good offense. So you see how it works out. It's a lot of talking around what the actual plays are here. If you could pay up, I would take the Jags. That's going to be tough. If not, I'm going to take the Ravens.
Yeah, the Ravens I think is like that would be the math play.
Chargers is me, huh?
Well, the Ravens are at least a comparable play, and they're a better defense overall.
I mean, you know what? Out of all those cheap defenses, the Browns might be the better play. If you say that the Chargers they pass the ball more than regular teams anyway, the Browns defense isn't as bad as people make it out to be, and they do have some playmakers. And what if you just run into one of those shitty Rivers games?
Dude, I play the Browns defense every week in a tournament lineup. It hasn't worked yet, but it is going to work. Dude, Rivers has these random 3-pick games too. So honestly, out of all the crappy ones we're talking about, I'd probably just go all the way down to the Browns too if I was taking a real gamble in tournaments. But cash, I think I'm heavier on Chargers than you guys are, although Ravens is totally fine on. I mean, they're $900 cheaper. It's going to make roster construction easier.
That'll do it.
That's fine.
That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience, guys. Thanks for the
Did
reunion.
I mispronounce any names?
Yeah, probably.
No, that's like the one thing that we didn't get the checklist of all of our shows.
Okay, well, let's bring that out then. Mike, is there a Titans tight end that you like to play this week?
Delanie Walker.
What about an old Steelers tight end who's retired?
Ladarius.
I didn't even think Ladarius was that old.
Ladarius. Dude, there's some Ricky Seals-Jones comparisons there in the sense that we were playing him at a 20% snap rate. Granted, one guy's a super freak athlete and one guy's
Ladarius Green
completely
was
not.
Yeah, he was built in a lab to play football.
Until he wasn't anymore.
Actually, Doran Dickerson is actually the best athlete that ever played football, and he was a Bill for a while.
Yeah, he was. I didn't know that. That was pre me being educated about, athleticism being important in football.
That was back when Dink was DMing me being dude, don't you think Andre Ellington's probably good?
I can't say anything. I've had my misses.
All right, so both you guys root for teams that are in the midst of a playoff run. Mike, do you think the Bills make?
My team is not.
All right, so Davis, you don't think that the Chiefs make the playoffs?
I'm a Cowboys fan.
Oh yeah, you're going to all these. You're going to all these Chiefs games.
Belief. Yeah, I go to the Chiefs games because the stadium's 15 minutes from my house and I get free tickets.
All right, well, tell me about the Chiefs then. What's their shot?
To make the playoffs?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess they just have to beat the Chargers and they'll make it in, but I don't even know if they can. I'm telling you, this is the worst Alex has ever played. This is worse than when he got benched for Kaepernick.
Mike, how about the Bills?
All right. Do you want the long story or the short story?
Give me the long story.
No one cares.
No, the Bills have to beat the Colts and Dolphins at home 2 of the next 3 weeks and then win in Miami. They get to 9-7. They've got a 75% shot because the AFC is trash. The hard part is trash as the AFC is, some of these annoying teams like the Ravens have really, really easy schedules the rest of the way. That's basically it. Are they going to do it? Probably not. Are my hopes up? Absolutely.
If they had started Tyrod in Los Angeles instead of Peterman, do you think they could have won that game?
I think they could have. I think they were pretty big underdogs, and the Chargers are really good. And it, probably, ended up a 7-point spread with Peterman. Knowing what we know now, even with Tyrod, it probably would have been a 7-point spread. But when a guy throws 5 picks in the first half, I know people are like, "Oh, the defense got ran over. It didn't matter." The guy threw 5 picks in the first half. He threw a pick 6. Granted, that one wasn't his fault, but that completely changes the game. I don't think you can automatically say they would have lost. So if they miss the playoffs by 1 game, that is gonna sting for a while. For a team that hasn't made I know they're not a contender or anything, even if they made it, but for a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 17 years, to make that move at that point in time was really, really sketchy and could really come back to bite them. And it's crazy to me, quick rant, but it's crazy to me, the people that were so pro Tyrod getting benched are furious that Eli's getting benched when Tyrod is better than Eli in every respect and on a team that was in the playoffs, and Eli's on a team that's been out of the playoffs forever and is 37 years old. I can't mentally handle that there are people that can simultaneously believe those two things at the same time, which is what simultaneously means. So I'm getting repetitive.
Davis, maybe I'll throw this out. I'll throw this out to both of you, but Davis first. There's been a lot of people talking about Eli's the best quarterback from that draft class. He won the 2 Super Bowls. So if you had to go Eli, Rivers, or Ben, which one would you take?
Ben. Ben has been consistently the best of that group, I think. He's terrible now. They're all terrible now, really. Rivers is the only one who even seems to have like the baseline of competency now.
Roethlisberger's been better the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's been okay. I don't know, but I think Roethlisberger has had like the best career of those guys.
And he's also won 2 Super Bowls as well. I think that kind of gets it gets overlooked when people keep talking about Eli.
Sure.
Right.
But
I think Rivers gets kind of shafted in this whole
because
argument.
he's always had bad coaches and bad teams.
I think Rivers is closer to Ben than Eli is to Rivers.
Oh, really?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, but he doesn't have 2 Super Bowl rings, though. How is that possible?
Rivers is like very similar to Romo in that he's had like a historically very good career. Well, Romo was historically great, but Rivers was very good, and he will not be remembered that way. 15 years from now, absolutely no one will remember Rivers.
And I saw the Anderkers going off about how Eli's had, these bad weapons over his career. When we had a year Rivers was producing with, like, who was that, Seiji Arotu or whoever the hell
it's Seiji Ajira Tutu.
Yeah. I mean, talk about not having weapons. I mean, come on, get out of here.
I mean, in fairness to Rivers, he had Tomlinson, he had Gates, and he had, Tim was going on about how Vincent Jackson was like an all-time great receiver, but I think we can pump the brakes on that one. Keenan Allen's good, but to say that, how many years has Beckham played now? 2 and a bit? If we cross out the injury. So you had him, you had Amani Toomer's not bad, Plexico Burr's good. If we talk about backfield, sure that, oh my God, I'm completely spacing on his name. Tiki Barber isn't LaDainian Tomlinson, but Tiki Barber was pretty good. Too. What's that?
Yeah, he had what happened to Akeem Nicks?
His knees just like were made of chalk. They just disintegrated over time. That
was unfortunate. He was really good.
He was really good.
But do you think that LT is probably a bad example, but like someone like Gates, like was Gates awesome because Gates is awesome, or is Gates awesome because he had Rivers?
Gates is awesome.
Okay,
yeah, he was awesome.
But it's not like Rivers was flooded with crazy talent. I don't know. Maybe I'm just misremembering. It's hard to but I think Eli's consistently had okay stuff around him. It's not like he was making it work with trash.
No, and it seemed, at least until this year, basically, that the Giants always had the better defense to win games, and that's what somehow quarterbacks get judged by.
That sounds about right.
But I think it's Ben
Both those
of
guys
that group.
Threw too many picks, I think, is the one thing.
Is that why you go with? But is Ben actually better than these guys?
It's really tough because Ben, they went 15-1. Oh my God! Now you're bringing up memories of the Bills losing to the Steelers
the
third
backups?
stringers that year for Ben. But he stepped into a great situation. But dude, he was perfect for that team though. Like I don't think you can knock it. Like he stepped into a good situation, but he was amazing in it and he thrived in it. So I think you got to give Ben his credit.
All right. Any final thoughts from you guys about the Week 13 main slate, Mike? Main slate only.
Let's go to Davis first. Let's go to Davis first.
Jets onslaught.
Jets onslaught. All right, Mike.
Well, Michael Thomas is going to be on the Millie Maker winning team.
It's just like terrible takes.
I think that DJ Foster has a better chance of being on the winning Millie Maker team than Michael Thomas does.
I'll give you odds on that.
What kind of odds? I want big ones.
I'll give you like 10-1.
Well,
I've got Thomas, and then if neither are on, it's a push.
Well, considering that DJ Foster is going to be owned by 0.1% of people, if that's going to be tough for me.
Yeah, I'm not the one who said he had a better chance of being on the winning team.
All right, that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. You can follow Mike on Twitter at 2hats1Mike. You can follow Davis on Twitter at Davis Mattek. Davis, when is the Swolecast on?
Every Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern.
And where can people read your column?
Also at rotogrinders.com/NFL.
All right, Mike, we already talked about the Daily Roto projections, killing it in the rankings right now. What else is Daily Roto have coming down the pike?
We've got some exciting golf stuff coming for next year, but right now we've got customizable projections, both NFL, which are doing really well in the Fantasy Pros rankings, but NBA customizable projections. Both are really cool because if you don't agree with us on like targets or minutes played, you can tweak and immediately get a projection that makes sense based on your input. So I think that's a really, really cool feature in addition to all the research tools, podcast, written content that we have over there.
And I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at ThePME on Twitter. Check out my updated cheat sheet and rankings up on DKPlaybook.com. You can follow the Pat Mayo experience for audio versions on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Audio Boom, plus the video versions up on the DraftKings YouTube page. Pat Mayo, good luck in Week 13. I'll see you next time.